Assalamu alaikum. So the lesson today is about quadratic equations. So first we are going to define what is a quadratic equations. Then we're gonna learn a method how to solve quadratic equations. So let's start by giving the definition of quadratic equations. So definition. So what is a quadratic equations? So quadratic equations is just an equations defined by ax squared plus bx plus c equal 0, where a cannot be 0 and b and c are real number. So let me give you an example of quadratic equations. So for example, 3x squared plus 5x plus 2 equals 0. 7x squared minus 2x plus 9 equal 11. 4x squared equal 5. 2x minus 5 square equal x minus 9, and so on. So those are example of quadratic equations. So the purpose of the lesson is to teach you how to solve those type of equations. So how we solve those? So there are different methods how to solve quadratic equations. So there are. So and those methods are square root method and completing the square. Quadratic formula. So inshallah we are going to learn all those type of method. So today we are going to learn how to solve quadratic equations using square root method. So square root method. So, by the way, keep in mind that those type or those method of solving quadratic equations, they are related with the type of quadratic you have. It's not doesn't work for all the type, but it's especially for certain type of quadratic equations. So we're gonna see this today with the square root method. So square root method work for a certain type of quadratic equations. All right, so let's start with the square root method. So I will uh, I will discuss with you with cases. So because there are different cases when you can use the square root method. So let's start with the first case. So case one. So when we have if b equal 0 and c equals 0. So which means that we are going to solve. So then we solve ax squared equal 0. So this is the first step we are going to learn. So to solve ax squared equals 0. So keep in mind that we already know that a is not 0. So which means that we can divide both sides by a. So that's mean the first thing what you do, you divide both sides by a. So we divide both sides by a. So you end up having x squared equal 0. So when you have x squared equal 0, that means the only number that make that expression equal 0 is 0. So there is no such thing that another number when you square it give you 0. The only number you square and it give you 0 is 0 itself. So here right away you just say x equal 0. So that's that's the way how you solve that type of uh, quadratic equations. But be careful. The x here is just for the case study. So let me show you an example. You see what I mean by that type of quadratic equations. So let me give you an example and you will see. So example. So suppose I want to solve that. Let me give you the first example. Minus 3x squared equal 0. Like I say here, this is not 0, so we divide both sides by minus 3. So we will end up having x squared equal 0. Then any number you square give you 0 is just 0 itself. So you conclude that x equal 0. So, and you state the solution is just 0. This is the first case. So the second case of that type of equations, I'm going to use the same board here. So if I, for example, 4 times x minus 5 squared equals 0. So here again, I do the same idea. First, I divide by 4. So I will end up having x minus 5 squared equals 0. You can tell me why didn't you use the square root here. So it's not, it, I don't know, it's there's no use for using square root. Any number you make it square give you 0 is 0 itself. So I don't have to put the square root both side and those. It make no sense. So anything you make square, it give you 0, it's just 0 itself, which means that this expression inside must be equal to 0. Now it's become linear equations, which you know how to solve linear equations. So I just need to add 5 both sides. So this will cancel out. So x will be equal to 5 and my solution will be just 5. Let me give you another example. So for example, if I have minus 7 half 4x plus 3 square equal 0. So in that case, what I do here, I divide both sides by minus 7 half. So this will cancel out, and what's left is 4x plus 3 squared equal 0. Again, anything squared equals 0, that means the value inside is 0. So, which means that 4x plus 3 equal 0. Now it's become linear equations. So I minus 3 both sides. I got 4x equal minus 3, then divide by 4, which means that x will be equal minus 3, 4. So my solution will be just minus 3, 4. So those are the type of equations we're gonna see for the first case. For to show you all type of cases that you can see for that. If a times c is greater than 0. You see, what does mean a times c greater than 0? That means a and c have the same sign, either both positive or both negative. And b equals 0. So then we will have ax squared plus c is equal to 0. So here is greater than 0. That means it's not equal, which means both of them they are different than 0, and both of them have the same sign, both positive or both negative. So here what we'll have, I will have that ax squared plus c equal 0. So again, I'm going to solve it first as linear equations. So I try to isolate a x squared by itself. So I move all number to the other side by using the opposite operation. So here I will minus c both sides first. So I got ax squared equal minus c. Then after that I divide both sides by a. So which means that I will have x squared equal minus c over a. Keep in mind that c and a have the same sign. So if they have the same sign, that means we have what? AC is greater than 0, and even c over a is greater than 0. But here what do we have? We have a minus c over a, which means this is positive, with the rest becomes negative. Square can never be negative. It should be always be positive, unless if you talk about complex number, but this is not our case. Our case, we are dealing with real number. So which means that this cannot have a solution because that number is negative and square is always positive. So here we end up with a contradiction, which means there is no solution here. No real solution. And the set of solution, we always use that symbol which is called empty set. There is no solution. So let me give you an example that may uh, work with that case. So let me give you an example. So suppose I want to solve 4x squared plus 7 equal 0. So like I say here, we subtract 7 both sides. As you see, A and C have the same sign, both positive. Then you divide by 4. We end up having minus 7 over 4. You see, this is a contradiction. X squared is always positive. This is negative. Positive can never equal a negative number. So this is less than 0, impossible. Just say no real solution. Don't say no solution because it depends what type of set you are working on, either complex number or a number, but always we state no real solution. So my set of solution here is empty. I'll give you another example. So if I have, for example, 5x minus 5 square plus 9 equals 0. So here again, what I do here, minus 9 both sides. I have 5 times x minus 5 squared equal minus 9. Again, I divide both sides by 5. So I end up having x minus 5 squared equal minus 5 over 5. And look at this. This is what the most of students get confused, is they have a number, they have an expression inside, and they don't see the expression. You see, they learn with the x, but they don't. You see, in the lesson, what do we have? We have x. Like this x is just for the case. So x can be an expression. See x as an expression, just not a variable. This means an expression. It can be anything. It can be either linear expression, quadratic expression, can be anything. So don't see it as just a variable. And this is the case we have here. You see we have x minus 5 squared equal minus 9 over 5. You see, I don't see it as x itself. No, I see that this is the whole thing. It's just one thing square. This thing must be positive. The whole thing must be positive. But our case here, it's equal to negative number, which is impossible. So when you end up having something square like this equal a negative number, and you're dealing with a real set, so stop and say this is impossible and no solution. So this is impossible. So I say no real solution. Don't try to make x appear by itself. No. No real solution. So let me give you another case. So suppose I have, for example, minus 2 times 7x squared minus 5x plus 2 square minus 9 equal 0, for example. You see, I can put anything inside the square, anything inside. But still, again, we will end up having no solution because the sign of A and C are the same. Both are negative in our case here. So here, look, I plus 9 both sides. So we'll end up having minus 2 times 7x squared minus 5x plus 2 squared equal 9. I divide by minus 2. Then I will end up having what? 7x squared minus 5x plus 2 squared equal minus 9 over 2. You see, we have something square equal a negative number, which is impossible. So this is impossible. Regardless what's inside of that square, so this is not our case. Our case is, okay, what do we have? The outside expression, I have a square equal a negative. So this is how you should see it. A square equal a negative. Is it possible or not possible? It's impossible in terms of real number, so there is no real solution. And you say your set of solution is empty. The same thing here. Your set of solution is empty. So this is for that case. So type A is less than 0. And so we are going to solve ax squared plus c equals 0. So we have ax squared plus c equal 0. So again, we are going to subtract minus c both sides. So we'll have ax squared equal minus c divided by a both sides. So we'll end up having x squared equal minus c over a. Keep in mind that c times a is negative, which means again c over a is negative because both of them they are different sign. C times a less than 0 mean one positive, one negative. Either c is positive or negative, but if c take one sign, a take the opposite sign. So that's the idea. And if both of them are negative, and if you multiply both sides by a minus, you end up having minus c over a greater than 0 because when you multiply by a negative number, you flip the inequality sign. So this is the case here. We have minus c over a is positive. So here x squared is positive. So then this is true. This is a true statement. So this is true statement. So what I do now, I can raise my square root. So I will have x equal plus or minus square root of minus c over a. Guys, don't get confused if a minus is inside the square root. Keep in mind, we're not dealing with the minus, we're dealing with the whole number, the whole thing here. So the whole thing is positive. Even if you see minus out is there, but the whole thing is negative. Like for example, minus 4, like that. It's like c over a is minus 4. This is c over a, and this is a minus. You see, if I see the whole thing is positive, so it doesn't mean I can use the square root with a positive. So I hope you got the point. So that's the idea. So now my set of solution, we will have two number. Either I have the square root minus c over a or minus square root of minus c over a. So those are my solution. So let me give you an example for that case. So suppose I want to solve for 5x squared minus 4 equal 12. So here you see I can have 0, I can have any number. So there is no like special case, but it can be 0, it can be any number. So what I do the same process. I will add 4 both sides. So I got 5x squared equal 16. Divide both sides by 5. So I will end up having x squared equal 16 over 5. You see this is positive. This is positive. You see, always look at the last statement. X squared is positive. When you isolate x squared by itself and you have the number on the other side, see your final statement. Is it positive? Is it positive? That means, do I have a true statement? Yes. Then you can go further. If it's not true, then you have to stop and you say there is no solution. So now this is positive. This is positive. So what I do, I take the square root. So I will have plus or minus square root of 16 over 5. So which means that this is equal to plus or minus square root of 16 over square root of 5. So which is plus or minus square root, which is 4 over square root of 5. So let me do, I don't want to skip that steps. but we cannot have irrational number on the denominator. So what we do, you multiply both sides by the same denominator. So my final answer will be plus or minus 4 square root of 5 over 5. So my solution is either 4 square root of 5 over 5, which is the positive one, or minus 4 square root of 5 over 5. So this is for that case. For another example, if I have minus 3x squared plus 7 equal minus 5. So here what I do, I minus 7 both sides. I got minus 3x squared equal minus 12. Divide by minus 3. Don't divide by 3 itself. Divide by the number with its sign. Divide by the number with its sign. Don't forget, divide by the number with its sign. So here we will have x squared. Negative, negative become positive. So we end up having 4. This is positive. This is positive. So this is true. So I can take the square root. So x will be plus or minus square root of 4, which is 2. So it's going to be plus or minus 2. So my solution here will be 2 or minus 2. So let me give you another example. So if I, for example, let me do a line here. Suppose I want to solve 4 times 2x minus 3 square minus 9 equal 0. So again, so what I do here, minus 9 both sides, plus 9, sorry. So I will end up having 4 times 2x minus 3 square equal 9. Divide by 4 both sides. So we'll end up having 2x minus 3 square equal 9 over 4. This is positive. This one is positive. Square is always positive. This one is positive. This is a true statement, so I can do the square root. So the square root is the whole thing inside equal plus or minus the square root of 9 over 4, which is plus or minus 3 half. So here we have one positive, one negative. So what I do, I put 2x minus 3 equal the positive number, or I put 2x minus 3 equals the negative number. Then you have two linear equations which you can solve. So you add 3 both sides. The same thing here, you add 3 both sides. Then you will end up having 2x equal 3 plus 3 half is we have 6, so it's going to be 9 half. And here we have 2x, we have 3 minus 3 half is 3 half. So this is 9. Let me make it bigger. Okay. Now we multiply both sides by half. Here the same thing. So those two cancel out. So we'll end up having x equal 9 fourths. Or here x equal 3 4. So let me will be 4 or 3 fourths. So those are the solution for that type. Let me give you a last example. So suppose I want to solve minus 2 times x plus 9 square plus 8 equal 0. So here again I will subtract 8 both sides. As you see here, I always start with the positive or negative, which is I use the reverse order of operation. You see, which is uh, subtraction, addition, multiplication, division, exponent, and parentheses. And this is a good application of that example. So here we have minus 2 times x plus 9 square equal minus 8. You see here I start with subtraction. If I have addition, if I have subtraction, I will add. You see, we do one of those, then I move exponent, then the parentheses. So now, if I have multiplication, I will divide, so which is what I will do here. So I divide by minus 2. So I will end up having x plus 9 squared equal 4. Now I'm going to move to exponent. So this is positive. So I'm going to take the square root. So I'm going to use the exponent property, which is the 1/2. So, but we just call it square root. So I'm going to square root both sides. So I will end up having x plus 9 equal plus or minus square root of 4, which is plus or minus 2. The last thing is parentheses. Now I'm going to solve what's inside of the parentheses, which is x plus 9. So I will have x plus 9 equal plus 2, or x plus 9 equal minus 2. So I minus 9 both sides. X equal minus 7, minus 9 both sides. X equal minus 11. So my solution here will be minus 7, minus 11, and this all about how to solve a quadratic equations using square root method. So I hope you understand the main idea behind that method, and please, if you have any comment that help me improve my way of teaching and explaining, please do so. Thank you very much for watching the video, and Salam alaikum.